Hey folks, welcome back to Real Estate Investing Unmasked. You just submitted your purchase agreement and your offer has been accepted. Now what? Step 8 is you order your home inspection and your real estate appraisal. All right, folks, so now it's time for you to get your home inspection. A home inspection is an interesting thing. The home inspection, it's not where an inspector is going to come in the house, start jabbing the walls and finding if there's termite damage or mold or anything like that. Based on what they destroy, they're going to be able to find those things with their trained eye just by looking around. What they're going to do is they're going to look for termite droppings or for recesses in the wood where it looks like termites have eaten through and caused channels within the wood system, at the windows, at the panels outside, etc. They'll look at the flooring and to see if it looks level, to see if the foundation looks like it's been cracked. They'll look at the roof to see if it's sagging. They'll look inside the attic and look to see if there's any water damage to show that there may be some leaks. They'll look underneath the sink to see if there's water damage underneath the sink. They'll look around the toilet to see if there's any kind of issues with that, like maybe it has issues as well. There's a lot of places that could go wrong inside a house. They'll look at the HVAC system. They'll look at the water heater. Whatever they can see visually, that's what will determine what goes on their appraisal report. However, what they will not do is they're not going to open the wall and see how the electric wiring looks. They're not going to see they used 50,000 screws to put up the drywall when it only took 5 screws or 10 screws. They're not going to look for those things. So everything the home inspector is going to see is all stuff that is just inside the house. It's just a visual inspection. It is not pass-fail. It's not them determining what building code is, although they can in some cases tell you, that's not permitted, I can tell. And so they will take pictures of things that stand out. Paint chipping, they may be able to say, hey, that's paint chipping. They may not say necessarily that it's lead paint or that you have asbestos or things like that, because they have to have some kind of lab test to prove those things. And when they come in and do a visual inspection, they don't have the lab with them. So you might have to do an additional inspection when it comes to lead or to radon or some of the other things that may be considered hazardous in your area. All right, so a home inspection, they're not going to tell you, hey, you passed. No, instead they're going to say, these are all the things that we found. These are all things that could be of concern to you. Then it's up to you to turn around and do what's in step 9, which is to renegotiate the contract. To go to the seller and say, I would like for you to give me a credit for replacing the window, replacing the door, those eaten by termites, or give me a $5,000 credit toward re-roofing the roof because we see there's water damage inside the attic, or we see that there's a crack in the foundation based on the information the inspector gave us. We'd like you to give us a $10,000 credit toward repairing that cracked foundation. So there could be any number of things that the home inspector sees, but it's all based on the education and the background of that inspector. Now, in some states, they're required to license their home inspectors. In my state, in California, of all the places you think that they would be, they're not. And so any Joe Schmo could go out and do a home inspection as long as they do it in good faith. Now, something that a home inspector cannot do is go back to the house and offer to do the repairs for you within a year of their inspection. This is considered an ethics violation because the intent is not for them to go there and tell you what the problem is to get a job, is to go there on good faith to give a third-person view of this is what's going on. It's an arm's length person that has nothing to do. It's a neutral ground for them to say, this is what I see as the issue with what's going on, and then it's up to you to decide what to do with that information. For the home appraisal, it's also time to get an appraisal for the house. The appraisal is not for you. You may feel like it's for you, but it's not for you. The home appraisal is for the lender. You see, the lender's putting up hundreds of thousands of dollars for your stead, doing it for you because they love you. No, not really. They just know you're going to be paying them interest over the next 20, 30 years. So when it comes to the appraisal, the lender is going to be putting the majority of the money into this property. And they want to make sure that if for some reason you do not pay your bills, they're able to get their money back, which is also why you got to put skin in the game, 3.5% to 20% usually, depending on what kind of loan you get. So the appraisal, their purpose, again, is to be this neutral transaction, this neutral person going into the property and determining the value. The way they do that is they look for other houses that are close to yours that compare to the house that you're buying. That's why they're called comparables. And I have a certificate in real estate appraisal, so I have studied it. I did not become licensed in my state, in the state of California, but it is a very good job for those that are interested in finding good part-time gig. An appraisal will cost $450 to $600 in 2021's numbers. You might be able to find somebody that says they can do it for less online, but the reality is, if you want a good appraisal, it's going to be about $450 to $600. Now, you will not hire that appraiser directly. Because of the rules that were placed in 2008, because of the real estate crash in 2008, there were rules that were set in place so that when lenders hire an appraiser, they cannot hire them directly. Because what was happening is they would hire the same appraiser that said, yeah, we'll go ahead and give you whatever amounts you want, and they would give it to the lender saying, yep, the value's there, and they'd say, oh, houses are going up, we'll give you a higher value. And then of course the lender said, okay, we can lend on this amount. And it caused the market to increase dramatically, really fast, rapid increases. And when it crashed, a lot of it was because the appraisers had gone along with the lenders that were just lending money freely. So one of their rules was to make it so it was an arm's length transaction. It was a blind transaction where they say, okay, we're going to hire this group of appraisers and they will determine within their group who's going to do the appraisal. An appraisal takes somewhere between 4 to 8 hours to complete. The appraiser is going to come to the house. There are terms of ethics. They need to be inside the house between 15 minutes and an hour. They got to measure the inside. They sometimes will measure the outside. They got to determine how many bedrooms, bathrooms, the state of repair, because when they're doing the appraisal, it's as is. It's as the property is right now, not as it's going to be, but as it is, because you're buying the property as is. Now, you can hire an appraiser directly for your own purposes later on. An appraiser has the ability to tell you what the property should be worth later on based on a certain criteria that you give them, or based on what it sold in the past. That's something that they're trained to do. But for this purpose, right now, for you to buy this house, it's all for them to go and determine what the other comparable homes are in the area, match them to your home, and say, based on this number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, number of parking spaces, the style of the house, the pool, the backyard, the square footage of the lot, whatever it is, they determine that that's about what the property should sell for and what your value is. And as long as that value comes in at or above what you're trying to buy the house for, there's usually no problem, which is about 80 to 90% of the time. That other 10 to 20% of the time when the appraisal comes lower than expected, you can ask for another appraisal. It's going to cost you, but you can ask for another one. And sometimes that extra $450 to $600 is cheaper than trying to come up with that extra 10 grand to make up the difference. So it is in your best interest to do that at times. Now, the lender can also complain to the appraiser group saying, hey, wait a minute, they did not take into consideration all the factors in this house, in this situation. And they can ask for a reissuance of that appraisal to have them reconsider something else. For instance, maybe there was a house that just recently sold right down the street that they didn't take into consideration that had sold for more. And so those are things that they can take into consideration. If, however, the appraisal comes in much lower than what the seller's trying to sell the property for and the buyer agreed to buy the property for, then there are only about 4 options. One is you bail out and you're done. The other 3 options are the buyer pays the additional price above the appraisal, or the buyer pays half, or wherever you and the seller agree, or the seller brings the price down to the appraisal price and the buyer buys it at the appraised price. That's more or less the only 3. And it's all pretty much the same thing. It's you and the seller negotiating where you want to meet. Do you want to meet at that top price? If it's a really hot seller's market and they're like, I don't care what the appraiser says, that is totally what it's worth, then the buyer's going to come out of pocket and pay that extra. So let me give you a financial example with the numbers, right? Let's say that you're trying to buy the house for $510,000, $510,000. The appraisal comes in at $500,000, so they're off by 10 grand. You can either pay the down payment on the $500,000 plus the 10, or you can negotiate with the seller to bring down the price to $505 or to $500, and that will be between you and them. But anything above $500, you have to come out of pocket, and that doesn't count towards your down payment on a percentage-wise toward the loan. So the loan is going to require either 3.5% to 20% typically. So let's say that you wanted to put 20% down on this $500,000 home. Well, 20% is $100,000. So you're going to have to come up with that $100,000. Anything above that $500,000 for your purchase price, you got to come up with. So it's going to be 100 plus anything above that. So if it came at 510, you got to pay 100 plus the additional 10, so 110 grand. Got it? I hope so. If you have any questions, feel free to ask down below in the comment section. But these are great times when you can renegotiate with the seller. Both of these, the home inspection and the appraisal, are what most commonly are used to renegotiate the contract, to bring in credits, to bring the price down. But sometimes if that appraisal comes in really high and the seller finds out about it, because you don't have to tell the seller, but if the seller finds out about it, that may be something where they're going to try to bring the price up. So you don't have to tell them about it. You don't have to mention anything to it. For instance, in the house that I recently bought, the appraisal came up $15,000 higher than I was offering on the property, and I was mum's the word. So thank you for watching, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask down below or reach out to me on my website at www.watchbobonyoutube.com. And don't forget to like, subscribe if you want to see the next couple of steps, and I'll see you there next time. Thanks for watching.